which brings me to, this is Mama Glory. So for all the ladies in here, when you have your first child in Africa, you lose your name. You take on the name of your firstborn child. So she had a different name, but then she had her daughter Glory. So her name became Mama Glory. It was no longer her original name. So if I had a child, I would no longer be called Erin. Absolutely no one called me Erin. They would call me Mama, whatever the name of my first child is. Mama Glory worked in a Kanga Katanga shop. So all of those fabrics back there are Kangas and Katangas, which is this nice big piece of cloth that, yeah, go ahead.
Did you buy anything while you were there? Like, and how was the currency exchange for that? Because like, if you're at a fabric shop and like, you didn't buy any fabric or anything at all.
No, great question, great question. So actually, all of these pants that we're wearing are all made out of Kangas. So that's why we went to her, we bought our fabric from her, and asked her, she is a seamstress, and we asked her if she could make us pants. And so that was definitely something that actually almost every girl on the trip bought, had pants made. As far as currency goes, every country we went to has a completely different currency. So in Kenya, it is the Kenyan shilling. Tanzania, the Tanzanian shilling. Malawi is the kwacha. Zambia is the Zambian kwacha, but they're different exchange rates. Namibia is the dollar, actually, which got really confusing because it's $8 to the dollar. 8 Namibian dollars to the American dollar. And then in South Africa, it's the rand. And so every country we went to had a different exchange rate. And that definitely got really confusing when we were switching countries almost every week. You had to get really good at doing math fast, especially when you're negotiating in Swahili. So you're working on your numbers, but also trying to work on what the exchange rate is. So sometimes we had no idea what we were paying for things, but in every single country, our dollar is doing better than their money. And so I think the worst that they had would be the Zambian kwacha was 5,000 kwacha to the dollar. And so, you know, you would buy things for 1,000 kwacha, it's not even a quarter. And so, and like the chips and eggs that you saw us eating, the potatoes and eggs you saw us eating, that generally cost about 20 to 30 cents a plate. And it's huge, I mean, you get filled up on this food. So, I put Mama Glory in here though so that I could explain she was the very first person that we had a full conversation with in complete Swahili, no English whatsoever, and no translators. It was just the three of us and her trying to buy our pants. And she was the sweetest lady ever, and we met her daughter and we gave her daughter gifts and you know, asked if we could take pictures with her and everything, and she was so sweet, and we did all of our conversing in Swahili. So I put Mr. Tumia in there again. In Malawi, they speak Chichewa, so Chichewa and English. So this is where you start learning English as well. Mr. Tumia knew at least about 5 or 6 languages. Every country we went to, people are multilingual, very multilingual. And so even Mama Glory, she knew Swahili, she didn't know English, but she knew a bunch of other tribal languages. And so many people are very multilingual. This is Ollie. He was our overland truck driver. And he's Zambian, but he drove us through Namibia. He speaks Afrikaans, but he speaks about 5 to 6 different tribal languages. Incredibly necessary because when you're driving through all of these places, you get stopped and he has to know how to converse with anyone who stops him. So yeah, he knew about a total of 7 languages. These were some friends that we met. These two here actually are Namibian. They are 4th generation Namibian. But Namibia is a really strange country. It was colonized by the Germans, and it is still incredibly German influenced. And so there you speak Afrikaans, but with a German accent. And I mean, you get there and there's some towns, they don't look like Africa anymore because they sell schnitzel and pints of beer and all sorts of stuff that is nowhere near African. And actually, so this is Ollie again, and he actually had a really hard time understanding them because it is such a heavy German accent, but it's still Afrikaans. So it's almost a mix of 2 languages there.
What area was that, Erin?
I'm sorry?
That had the German influence, what area?
Namibia.
Okay.
And it's the country as a whole. Pretty much anywhere we went. Obviously it's a lot more in the bigger cities that you'll find the German influence, but even out, we were camping out in the desert, and our guide out there, he still had a pretty German accent. Okay, so I made this slide. I just wanted to show you guys that there is so much more to do in Africa than just safaris. So this is sandboarding, which is snowboarding but on sand. You can do either the stand up or the lie down, and the lie down is basically like sledding but through sand dunes. And then yeah, this one just looks like snowboarding. Shark diving, or this is me actually skydiving. Something I never thought I would do, but it just kind of sounded like something I guess I could brag about for a while. So jumped out of a plane with my partner at 10,000 feet over the Namib desert. So we did all of this stuff in Swakopmund, Namibia, which is called the adventure capital of Namibia. So you do all sorts of different things there. Surfing, shark diving, skydiving, any of that stuff. I wanted to show you guys some of the places that we ate at and some of the different foods that we had. So this is one of our favorite chips and egg stands. It was just kind of tucked back in a side alley, and this is his grill. If you can see it, just lights a fire and has a well right there, and throws in potatoes and eggs, fries all of it up. These bottles here are his homemade chili sauce. Incredibly spicy stuff. One of them actually gave me stomach ulcers, so it's very, very spicy stuff, but it was really good. And these probably cost us about 40 to 50 cents a plate, and they were huge, huge plates, but it's incredibly cheap and incredibly filling. So, okay, this is actually one of my favorite pictures. This is Malia eating Malia. This is a zebra steak. Sounds weird, but zebra is the best meat I have ever had. It is so good. We went to, it's a big steakhouse, and they do exotic game meats. So we tried things like zebra, ostrich, crocodile, kudu and oryx, which are basically like deer. But the zebra steak, by far the best steak I've ever had. It's delicious. This is warthog. This was our Thanksgiving dinner. Our driver at the time is from London, but she lives in Zambia. She's never heard of Thanksgiving. And during Thanksgiving, we were out in the desert, and I mean out in the desert, no running water, any of that stuff. And so we were explaining to her what Thanksgiving is all about. She felt bad because we were kind of down, we were missing this holiday with our families. So she went to the butcher, and she bought a warthog. And for Thanksgiving, we had warthog, and we had a side dish that's called ugali. And ugali is a very traditional African food. It looks like mashed potatoes, and you pick it up with your fingers and you mash it and you scoop up your meat with it. But it is nothing like mashed potatoes. It's very grainy, it's disgusting. It's made out of cornmeal, and they just mash it up. But so we had that just because it looks like mashed potatoes. So we had that with our warthog for Thanksgiving. This is curried crocodile. Actually really good and incredibly cliche, but it really does taste like chicken. I promise, it just tastes like curried chicken. This is a plate full of caterpillars. We went to a cafe for class, and my teacher had a surprise for us, which was a plate of crocodile and a plate of caterpillars. I wouldn't suggest eating them. They're really spiny. You can taste the little legs, and they're prickly. They're not really that fun to eat, so that didn't taste that good. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the main food like in Africa where you were?
Great question. Ugali. So ugali is that cornmeal mash that I talked about. The reason that it is such a main food, it's incredibly cheap, it's incredibly easy to make, and it's filling. And that is the biggest part of an African food staple, is that it has to fill you up. So, but it has a different name everywhere that you go. So when we started in Tanzania, it was called ugali, and then it changed to Nsima, Nshima, Pap, and Pop. It changes as you go farther down. Once you get down to South Africa, it really is, it starts to look more like America. We found our first KFC in Cape Town, and we all got super excited, so we went to go eat at KFC, and someone ordered chicken and a side dish of pap, and they had no idea what that was. They figured it was mashed potatoes. And they told me that they got a side dish of pap, and I just started laughing because it's this ugali. So they had, at a KFC, pap and gravy. Trust me, the gravy doesn't help it any. It is still disgusting. It's so gross. But so I made a slide of just bugs because they're everywhere and they're disgusting, and I don't know. I figured you guys would be bored by this point, so I threw in some bugs. This was, we actually have no idea what this was, but from antenna to butt, he was probably